Until We Meet Again, directed by Tadashi Imai, follows two young Tokyoites, Saburo, a student facing conscription, and Keiko, an artist marked by air raid nights whose tentative romance blooms in the shadow of war. Their meetings are snatched between blackouts and roll calls. Small gestures, a shared shelter, a walk in falling snow, a kiss through a window pane, become acts of defiance against a society tightening around them. Imai films their world with calm precision. Streets and rooms feel provisional, the future shrinking frame by frame as the army's timetable closes in. More than a love story, it's a clear-eyed anti-war elegy. Drawing on Romain Rolland's Pierre et Luce while relocating the drama to wartime Japan, the film opposes private tenderness to public conformity, showing how militarism corrodes ordinary feeling long before the front lines do. Quiet, humane, and emotionally direct, it stands as one of post-war Japanese cinema's defining portraits of youthful hope buffeted by history. The Ice-Cold Beauty, directed by Seiji Hisamatsu, brings Edogawa Ranpo's detective Kogoro Akechi to the screen in a stylish blend of mystery, gothic flourish, and urban noir. Akechi is drawn into a case whose macabre centerpiece is a beauty in ice, part sideshow legend, part deadly bait, spinning off into blackmail, imposture, and a trail of bodies. Night streets, cabarets, and backstage corridors become a maze of reflections and false identities as the detective peels back layers of performance to reach the crime's chilling core. More than a routine whodunit, it's an early post-war screen encounter with Ranpo's world of elegant morbidity where desire, spectacle, and death are tightly braided. The film bridges pre-war popular mysteries in the sleek studio look of 1950s thrillers, offering crisp pacing, gleaming craft, and the peculiar frisson that made Ranpo adaptations a durable current in Japanese popular cinema. Layla Majnu, directed by F. Nagore, revisits the timeless legend of Layla and Majnu, two lovers bound by devotion and undone by clan pride. In this Tamil language adaptation, the tale unfolds as a studio fantasia, courts and caravan roads, desert vistas built on sound stages, and musical set pieces that treat poetry as confession. Hayes' transformation into Majnun, the madman of love, gives the film its arc, moving from youthful infatuation to a mystical longing that no familial decree can silence. More than a simple romance, it's a gateway into how early 1950s South Indian cinema absorbed a pan-Islamic myth and reshaped it with song, dance, and melodrama. The result is affectionate, operatic, and culturally resonant, a bridge between theatrical storytelling and the full-bodied musical grammar of Madras studios, where grand emotions were sung as much as spoken. The Happiest Days of Your Life, directed by Frank Launder, turns a wartime housing blunder into high-speed farce. After a bureaucratic mix-up, a girls' school is abruptly billeted at a boys' academy, forcing the diffident headmaster Alastair Sim to share his kingdom with the formidable Miss Whitchurch, Margaret Rutherford. Classrooms, dormitories, and timetables collide. Visiting dignitaries and anxious parents must be deceived, and the staff stage two incompatible versions of order, one chalk dry, one steel spined, while chaos keeps peeking through the door. Adapted from John Dighton's hit play, the film is a masterclass in timing and escalation, with Sim's fluttery exasperation perfectly matched to Rutherford's unstoppable authority. Beyond the laughter, it satirizes British institutions, public schools, the civil service, the cult of tradition, without a hint of malice. A major homegrown success and a clear precursor to the later Centrinians films, it remains one of post-war British comedy's most beloved showcases for two iconic stars. They Were Not Divided, directed by Terence Young, follows three new recruits, an Englishman, an Irishman, and an American volunteer into the Guards' Armored Division, from square bashing and gunnery school to Normandy, the Ardennes, and the last push into Germany. The film tracks the making of a tank crew, drills, breakdowns, night maneuvers, live fire ranges, and the cramped choreography inside a Sherman as friendships harden under pressure. British Army cooperation and carefully woven combat footage give the action a documentary bite without sacrificing narrative clarity. More than a flag waver, it's a sober procedural about how modern armored warfare actually works. Routine, waiting, sudden shock, and how ordinary men are shaped by it. Young's clean, muscular staging hints at the action stylist he would become, while the use of serving soldiers and non-star actors keeps the tone grounded. The result is both a tribute and a record, unsentimental, technically attentive, and quietly moving in its attention to the bonds that survive the noise. The Angel with the Trumpet, directed by Anthony Bushell, is a Viennese family saga told through the fate of Henrietta Stein, Eileen Hurley, a woman of Jewish heritage who marries into the Alt dynasty of piano makers. A youthful liaison with Crown Prince Rudolph shadows her wedding day decades later as salons dim and the empire gives way to street parades and uniforms. The Alts fracture under scandal, ambition, and the tightening vise of anti-Semitism. By the time the Anschluss arrives, love, loyalty, and identity have all been put to the harshest possible test. A London Films remake of Carl Hartl's celebrated Austrian picture, it brings together British craft and authentic Central European accents. Basil Sidney as the Stern family patriarch, with striking early appearances by Maria Schell and Oscar Werner. Robert Krasker's luminous black and white images lend the story a silvery, elegiac sheen, while the recurring figure of the house's angel statue becomes a quiet witness to history. Less a grand romance than a chronicle of a century closing its doors, the film is polished, sober, and unexpectedly haunting. Cheaper by the Dozen, directed by Walter Lang, adapts the 1948 bestseller about the real Gilbreth family. 12 children managed by a pioneer of time and motion studies. Clifton Webb's Frank B. Gilbreth treats the household as a living laboratory, synchronized bath times, whistle codes, efficiency, driving lessons, and family meetings run like boardrooms. Myrna Loy's Lillian counters with warmth and steadiness, and the kids, led by an eldest daughter on the cusp of adulthood, test rules, nudge boundaries, and learn to love the method behind the madness. More than a string of gags, the film blends buoyant domestic comedy with a tender final act, turning scientific management into a metaphor for post-war hopes about order, progress, and family life. A major crowd pleaser for 20th Century Fox, it fixed Webb's fastidious persona, gave Loy one of her loveliest maternal roles, and proved popular enough to spawn a sequel, Bells on Their Toes, 1952. Warm, funny, and unexpectedly moving, it's the archetypal big family, picture against which later versions would be measured. The Baron of Arizona, directed by Samuel Fuller, dramatizes the audacious real-life swindle of James Rivas, Vincent Price, a forger who sets out to claim the whole of Arizona by manufacturing a 17th century Spanish land grant. Rivas apprentices himself to monks to master inks and scripts, ages, parchments, and European archives, and grooms a humble orphan presented as the last heir of the Peralta line, so that by marrying her, he can style himself Baron. What begins as a paper chase widens into a continental con, courtroom challenges, land rush panic, and a marriage tested by the difference between love and ambition. An early, bracing entry in Fuller's filmography, the picture turns a modest budget into a taut American fable about property, power, and the stories documents can tell or invent. Vincent Price gives one of his finest non-horror performances, suave and calculating yet edged with vulnerability, while James Wong Howe's lustrous black and white photography lends the scheme an almost gothic grandeur. Less a costume caper than a morality tale, it's about how far a man will go to author his own legend and what it costs when the legend meets the law. House by the River, directed by Fritz Lang, is a poisonous little chamber thriller about respectability rotting from within. Stephen Byrne, a block novelist in a genteel riverside house, murders his maid in a moment of desire and panic, then bullies his upright brother into helping hide the body in the dark current outside. As the river keeps whispering back reminders, odors, stains, rumors, Stephen discovers that crime is the best news he's ever had. His new manuscript flowers while suspicion, guilt, and blackmail tighten around the household. The wife begins to see what the water already knows. Lang stages it like a gothic morality play, all stairwells, curtains, and rippling reflections, where a fixed smile or a slow pan can feel like a verdict. The river becomes conscience made visible, a steady, indifferent witness flowing past a society obsessed with appearances. Modest in scale but exacting in design, the film distills recurring Lang themes, fatalism, voyeurism, the treachery of ordinary men, into a sleek, claustrophobic study of how a single lie breeds a whole career. Not a box office juggernaut, but a darkly elegant entry in Lang's American period, and one that lingers like the scent of damp on wallpaper. Quicksand, directed by Irving Pichel, strands a young auto mechanic, Dan Brady Mickey Rooney, in a classic noir spiral. To impress a new date, he borrows $20 from the till, intending to replace it by nightfall. One bad choice breeds another, a pawned watch, a stolen car, a bruising run-in with a small-time racketeer, Peter Lorre, and the steady pull of a femme fatale, Jean Cagney, who's always just out of reach. What began as a lark curdles into fear, then desperation, as the boardwalk lights and seaside amusements turn into traps. Beyond the plot mechanics, the kick is Rooney's against-type performance, nervy, insecure, and scarily plausible as an ordinary guy making incremental mistakes. Pichel keeps it lean under 80 minutes and unsentimental, shooting night streets, diners, and pier arcades as a maze of quick exits and dead ends. A type B movie with a moral sting, it's the kind of noir where fate looks less like destiny than arithmetic. One shortcut plus one lie equals a life collapsing in plain sight. Black Hand, directed by Richard Thorpe, is a taut early anti-mafia thriller set in turn-of-the-century New York. An Italian-American son returns to Little Italy determined to bring down the extortionists who terrorized his family, the Black Hand, whose threats arrive as letters demanding cash sealed with a smeared palm. Working with a reform-minded lawyer and a handful of frightened shopkeepers, he pushes against omerta, stages risky stings, and turns back-alley intimidation into courtroom testimony. Tenements, storefronts, and police precincts form a gritty circuit where fear is routine and courage comes in small, costly increments. What gives the film its kick is Gene Kelly in a straight dramatic role. No songs, just a driven resolve, anchoring an MGM procedural with a social conscience. Less a gangster spectacle than a community drama, it treats organized crime as a parasite on immigrant dreams and takes real interest in how witnesses are persuaded, evidence is built, and a neighborhood learns to stand up. Lean, purposeful, and unexpectedly moving, it points toward the later, more expansive mafia films while remaining its own sharp, compact statement.